welcome, guys. This is, I guess you could say, sort of like a new series that I want to start. Basically, just pouring my mind out to those of you who actually care. So, I'm going to do my best to treat this as basically like a one on one conversation, as if you are somebody that is sitting directly across from me and I'm just speaking directly to you. Now, obviously, it's going to be a little bit different because you don't have the chance to respond, but hopefully, I can do a good job playing devil's advocate and, answering my thoughts with questions with further answers. Hope that makes sense. So, before I begin, I just want to say this is if you actually care about your life, if you're genuinely willing to critically think, to experiment with new ideas, to be open to the possibility of changing for the better and possibly letting go of old beliefs or possibly sitting through something that might make you feel a little bit, you know, that kind of sounds like it might be a stupid thought, but like sticking with it to hear out what is really underneath that thought. Because there's a lot of things that I will probably get into where on the surface, if you're just looking at it from a surface level, it's like, oh my gosh, it's not that deep. Like, why are you going so deep? But if you hear me out, you will realize that there is real merit to what I'm sharing. But if you genuinely take it to heart and reflect on some of these things that I'm going to be sharing in this video and further videos, I really, really think that it can fundamentally reshape your life for the better. So I'll just give some background, some context real quick. This is going to be an elaborate series. So I just want to, give you guys all of that up front so that you know what this is, so that if you're not interested in that, do not stick around. But if you're really interested in, learning how to form your perspective, how to heal, again, I'm not saying I have all the answers. I just want to document where I'm at now because from what I'm seeing making music, right? Because that's for those of you who may not know, the reason that I'm sharing this is because I make music and because I have done this, you know, self-awareness, inner reflection to be able to articulate things that come from the depths of my soul that most people never even tap into. But to make music, I've done that. And so I've learned so much about myself and also working with, therapists and mentors and coaches from all different realms, emotional intelligence to straight up therapist, counseling, mentor, spiritually and otherwise, business, investing, all these types of things, understanding how business parallels just reality and the way that we have basic relationships in our lives, to just reach the end of the line and then share stuff, sometimes it's not as relatable. So I just want to document this journey. So anyway, that's enough of an introduction. What I would like to start with is thinking, and I just want to start by saying this. Wherever you are at in your life right now, doesn't matter what age, doesn't matter if you're in school or just working or you're pursuing a career and you know exactly what you want to do with your life, regardless of any of that, regardless of what stage you're in or your financial situation, none of that, like put all of that aside. Boom, human being here, human being there. If you want to change your life, we could get into a bunch of spiritual stuff, but for now, I think I'm going to spare all of those things because I want this to be more universal regardless of where you're at spiritually. And to go into spiritual subjects, sometimes you need to build off of certain foundations. And if you don't agree with a certain foundation, then we can't get very far. And because it's only a one-way conversation, I have to manage with that. So the ability to critically think and reflect and be self-aware is something that will serve you for your entire life, no matter what. What do I mean by this? When you go through an experience, you feel something, you feel uncomfortable, you feel depressed, you feel guilty, you feel convicted, right? In your soul, like, oh, I did something wrong, regardless of what it is. If you can sit with that and go, okay, instead of me just living my life in the exact same routine that I have lived every single day for my whole life and just going, we're going to unlock your conscious capacity. And what we're going to do is you are going to realize how much you are not aware of in your day-to-day life. The human mind is only reaching a fraction of what it is capable of. And in our world today, with all of the things that are automated for us, with the, I don't know if this is a word, instantaneousness of content, of validation, of resources, of knowledge, all of these things is so instant. And I think a lot of us unknowingly have completely numbed ourselves out to the reality that we actually live in. And we are living in a fabricated reality that we create in our mind, but that isn't the actual reality that we exist in. Now, a few examples of this. And I also want to say that none of this stuff that I'm saying is here to judge you or make you feel bad, because every single human being is guilty of these things to a certain extent. Okay. This is literally just to become aware of this stuff so that you can then go forward making your own decisions, because you're not going to be perfect, and that's okay. But if you have this awareness, then the next time that you do something, you can go, why am I doing this? So what I mean by this is, if you are obsessively, compulsively working, regardless of what it is, if you are like just boom, brain shuts off, do it. What I mean by that is, it's so ingrained, you haven't thought about why you're doing it. It's just a pattern. Now, obviously, that can be the case if you're like playing a sport and it's a routine and you're going to practice. That's not what I'm referring to. What I'm referring to is this: oh, I'm alone for a second, boom, pull up my phone, start scrolling through social media. Boom, get home, find myself on YouTube for 30 minutes before I do anything else. Why? 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 That's the question. What am I doing? Why am I doing it? If you want to break free from this pattern that you've been in for your entire life, or for a certain amount of time, right? You get in a routine, you got a certain schedule, you get home the same time every day, you have an ingrained routine. Think about this. What are you doing? And why are you doing it? Very, very simple. But we don't slow down to go, okay, I just spent 45 minutes watching YouTube videos on my phone. Why? Oh, because I'm interested in it, bro. It's not that deep. Okay, well, hold on. Let's pause and sit with this for a second. Some of you will think that I am absolutely crazy for going to this next level. But for those of you who are actually willing to listen, this will unlock so much in so many different areas of your life. Okay, so I'm just interested in it. Okay, well, let's dig. What else is there? Who could I be? If you believe in God, who is God calling me to be, right? What is my potential? What could I do with my life? Who is the best version of me? What would that version of me do? What are my abilities? What things am I interested in that I want to learn about? Hold on a second. How much time am I spending on my phone or whatever, watching Netflix or whatever, doing nothing that is genuinely contributing to my life? Now, this is where we get into difficult territory, because some people are like, bro, I work 8 hours a day or 10 hours a day. I get home, I have no energy left. So all I can do is just relax. And I understand that. And this is where it gets a little bit difficult. And this is why I'm sharing this stuff with you. And you are free to interpret it however you want and implement it as you choose to. And I'm not going to speak to that exact example. I'm going to speak more broadly. If you sit down and reflect on, okay, who am I? What could I do with my life? What skills, what gifts do I have, etc., all the things that I just mentioned. And then you think, well, what life do I want to live? What life am I called to live? What would a genuinely fruitful life look like? And I don't mean just a happy life of where I get the pleasure that I want when I want it. Because if you're at that level, oh my gosh, you're going to be miserable if you don't realize that fulfillment and fruitfulness of the things that you do in your life is so infinitely, infinitely more important to the insignificance of your temporary pleasure. If you don't realize that, you will be lost for your entire life. You will always end up in a pit of misery after whatever high you reach, and you will never be fulfilled if you live that life cycle. I know this from experience. If you're chasing pleasure, you will always, well, not always, but you will maybe reach that pleasure, and there's always going to be a dip after it. And that's not to say that, there's no pleasures that are good, of course. Like, it's good that food tastes good and etc. I don't need to go any deeper into that. But what I mean is, if that is the extent of the purpose that you believe in, you will forever be chasing a sense of a purpose in your life so that you can feel like you have justified your existence by your worthiness. I'm going to unpack that briefly. And this is like incredibly deep, and it's kind of crazy that I'm going into this so fast, and I hope that you can follow. So, what I have realized in my own life is that many of the things that I was doing were not really about being who I could be for a good reason, because there's, who could I be? Who's the best version of me? That part is great. But there's another side of that, which is, and then why am I trying to be that person? Because if you do all that and you do it all right, but you do it for the wrong reason, it's still not going to be fulfilling. I'm telling you this, it's true. Okay? You can experiment with this for your entire life, and your being will give you the same information that I'm expressing to you right now. If it's different, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what world you're living in, but like if you're doing something for the wrong reason, there's something missing. There's something missing. What I mean by that is if you think that you need to earn, I guess it does inevitably have to get to a spiritual thing because that's how you construct a worldview, and it, it has to have that because there's no eternal significance and value beyond a legacy that you leave without the existence of an ultimate being. That is necessary for an eternal value to your soul, to your being, moral law, like all these things, like it's necessary. So I'm sorry if I just lost you on that, but this is just like genuinely doing my best to seek truth. And these are things that I've thought about and I've worked through and I've come to a certain conclusion. And if I'm wrong about something and I have evidence that I'm wrong about something, then boom, if it's sufficient and it trumps what I believed before and the evidence trumps the evidence that I had before, then I'm going to change my belief when it's sufficient, right? Which I have done, and I've changed beliefs. But if you think that you need to earn being loved, this is deep, man. Man, I don't know how to encapsulate this all in one friggin' video. This is stuff I've learned over months. If you believe, because it all comes down to beliefs, what do you believe? Because what you believe influences everything in your life. And if you can reprogram your mind or have your mind reprogrammed by allowing God in, your beliefs change, the way you behave changes, your life changes completely. Because if you genuinely change your beliefs, oh my gosh, everything changes. That's what God does. That's what the Holy Spirit does. It all connects. I sound like a crazy person. It's hilarious. But if you believe that you need to earn being loved, then what you're going to do, I'm going to try to do it very clearly, is every decision, not necessarily every single decision, but many of the decisions that you make, many of the behaviors that you participate in will be in an effort to uphold your pride, not in the sense of just like, oh, just, maintaining like pride and integrity, but like boost myself up type thing. You will boost yourself up to justify your existence and justify your deservingness of being loved in the eyes of other people because your God is not the God of the universe. Your God has become the opinions of other people because that is the highest point that you're able to get to without letting go of your pride. Whoa, that just came to me right now. So, if you're not willing to, the Bible says, those who lose their lives for my sake will find them, and those who keep their lives or something like that will lose them. Something along those lines. And I can maybe, link to a clip that my friend Kenny posted, basically breaking this down of when you're selfish and you try to fight for your own pride, you actually lose so much of who you were meant to be by doing that. But when you let go of your life and what you want and all of your selfishness and desires, your selfish desires, you're free. I can't go into all that right now, unfortunately. And plus, that's something that I still need to think through and clarify the best way to articulate that. But going back to this thing about almost essentially worshiping other people, when you're not letting go of yourself in terms of humbling yourself and recognizing who you are in the grand scheme of reality and submitting yourself to God, which we're all guilty of not doing every single day, at least me every single day, then you make other people your God. You make social validation your God because you can unintentionally manipulate everyone else to believe that you are someone worth loving. And then you chase these highs, you chase this validation, you chase this recognition. Maybe this is all me projecting what my experience is, but this is what I learned about myself and what I was doing in my life. I was chasing all of these things and trying to justify my own existence. Why? Because when I was younger, I had a lot of positive reinforcement for positive behavior, for good grades, for those types of things. And I attached that to my level of deservingness of being loved because when I was not convenient to other people, I felt emotionally very disregarded, and I had experiences that made me feel disregarded. And from a young age, I started to identify with what I was able to contribute, which seems on the surface to make perfect sense, because of course, as a man, like, you're the provider, you're contributing to the world. What do you have to offer? What are you building? That makes sense, and that is good. However, I'm not saying that's not good, because it is phenomenal, and we would not have an earth functioning without that, right? But what I'm saying is that if I place the fullness of my identity in those things, what happens when those things fail? That's the question. Sure, you could be a great football player. And when someone says, "Who are you?" "Oh, I'm a football player." I identify with that because that's whatever, how I make money. That's how I stay in shape. That's what most of my life revolves around, right? Okay. What happens if you have an injury and all the things that you thought your life was are no longer? What do you do then? How do you function? Are you still loved? That's a deep question. And that might make some people laugh, like, "What do you mean? Like, I'm loved by the people who love me." What do you believe, though? And if you sit with that and you actually dig, whoa, what is all this stuff? Like, someone might be like, "Man, my mom never loved me," or "My dad never said he was proud of me. And so I've unknowingly been busting my ass to be able to earn the respect of other people so I can rub it in my dad's face and say, hey, see, you should have been there," right? But I think a lot of people don't really think about how those things influence them, or they might have a vague awareness of it, but not sit in that emotion and feel it and go, whoa, okay, what's happening here? What's happening here? Break this down. It's very hard to articulate something that's not my experience because it's different feelings. But it's like, let's say, okay, I was rewarded as a kid for all of the things I did great. However, when I did something that was inconvenient, I felt tossed aside. I felt like my emotions were completely and utterly a burden. And so I learned how to suppress them. I learned how to channel everything into one particular obsession where I could put everything into. And then I would identify with how well I played in hockey for me. And I channeled everything into that. And my whole life was about that. So when I would be spending time with family, friends, boom, all I could think about was hockey. When I was playing hockey, all I could think about was hockey. And I identify with that so much. But then when I had a concussion, and then later on when COVID happened, all that is like, okay, but who am I without that? Who am I without that? And I guess this is a spiritual principle, because Jesus said to the rich man, when the rich man came and said, hey, I've like done all these donations, I've done all the things you told me to do, like I've literally followed all the laws, like I'm set. Jesus, what else do you want me to do? He goes, sell everything that you have to, I think he said the poor, or like give all that you have to the poor and follow me. And I've reflected on this, and I've heard some different takes on this. And my favorite take, and the thing that I believe makes the most sense and sits right in my spirit, is what I heard Jordan Peterson say, which is Jesus wasn't saying in that moment every single person to exactly do that word for word, that, oh, if you are set, boom, get rid of everything that you have and follow him, just like as a random person with one pair of clothes on the street, right? According to my understanding and what I have heard, it is more so, what are you placing your faith in? What are you holding on to? What are you identifying with? Be set free from that so that you can genuinely be free and not be a slave to your false beliefs. So an example would be something that Jim Caviezel said. He's the actor who played Jesus in The Passion of the Christ. He said, and this is all going to tie in, he said, I love Lamborghinis. I love fast cars. I love nice cars. The difference is, can you let it go? And he said, I think he said he's had like a Lamborghini or something. But if God was to say like, hey, I need you to like get rid of that, boom, gone. But if you're in a mindset of, oh no, but I need to hold on to this. Well, what is that? You're identifying with that, and you are believing that without that thing, without that profession, without that skill set being put to use, that you're nothing. And that's not true. The truth is that you are a loved child of God. You were created, and you are deeply loved, and you were thought of before the earth existed. But we're not ready for that level of intimacy because we're vulnerable and we're afraid. And we don't want the dark parts of ourselves to be exposed because we don't believe that we are worthy of love and acceptance. We don't think that someone would stay and hug us and love us and comfort us in those moments of complete and utter brokenness, of sobbing, of the messy tears, of the snot dripping, right? But God loves you so much more than that. And I didn't intend for this to get to a spiritual place, but I guess the conversation, it inevitably goes there, man. Like, I don't know a way that it doesn't go there. because it ties into your ultimate spiritual identity for eternity. And that is so incredibly profound. And I'm sorry for just dropping this bomb on you all at once, but like, it's very difficult to peel back the layers and work my way back from the beginning. I would have to like sit down for 2 hours and just like edit that video down and go extremely chronologically. But yeah, I mean, like, what are you identifying with? And the way that all of this that I've just unpacked ties back to this thing I said earlier about spending 45 minutes watching YouTube videos on your phone is because oftentimes what you're doing on your phone is a distraction from this reality, from this, what you would probably call a rabbit hole of thinking that you don't want to go down. Now, I understand that because it's very easy to just obsess about this and to overthink things and to overanalyze every single decision that you make, which I am guilty of. You can probably tell that I think a lot about this stuff. Every single day of my life, I'm thinking about this type of stuff. Like, what decisions am I making? Why am I making them? What is the motive behind it? How does it fit into who I am and who I want to be? Like, and that can be detrimental if you're so obsessive over it. That's not good either. But the way that it ties back in is because, yeah, it's like you're numbing this stuff out and you're blocking it out. And if you were really in a place of, okay, I'm going to do my best to, not from a place of desperation, but from a place of love and openness, become better so that I can share that with other people, so that I can be fruitful in this world, so that I can help others. Like, that's something that's so beautiful and freeing, because it's so easy when you get that perspective of, oh, well, if I'm loved and if I'm good, then like I can just sort of do whatever I want and I'm still set. But that's what an irresponsible, disrespectful child does. That's what a toddler does when they're like, oh, my parents love me, so I'm just going to screw off and do whatever the heck. Like, that's very immature. The Bible says we love because he first loved us. And so if you are loved, if there has been an insurmountable debt that you owe and it has been paid for you due to grace, that's another conversation. I'm going to need to share that, which is basically what the gospel really is, and understanding it on like almost like a legal and, yeah, like the scales of justice for all of eternity. It's so profound. I'm going to have to share that because it's so interesting. It's not like, yo, you know that Jesus died for your sins, man? It's like, do you know what that means? Like, most Christians don't know what that means. Most Christians, most people that say, oh yeah, I'm a Christian, they have no idea what that even means. And I'm probably still guilty of that because there's so much that I don't know. But that's a story for another time. But yeah, I don't know. I think I'm going to just have to pick this up on another video. I hope this sparks some thought, some curiosity, like just thinking about like why you're doing what you're doing. What questions are you avoiding? What are you hiding from? What are you called to do in your life? How can you best serve others? How can you best utilize the gifts and skills that God has given you? Right? Like, it's uncomfortable. It's scary. It's scary to have faith, to, put yourself out there, to be vulnerable, to be open, to risk the judgment of other people, because it's so easy to judge who we are based off of merely the perceptions of other people. But if we were only judged based off of the perceptions of other people, well, then in Jesus's time, according to the environment that he was in when he was killed, he would be a terrible person in the eyes of the people who crucified him. But he was much more concerned about who the creator of the universe, and this gets into some other stuff about theology, about like who God is and the name of God and who Jesus is and all this type of stuff. So he's much more, let's put it this way. He's much more concerned with what his true identity is in objective reality than he is concerned about the subjective perspectives of those he interacts with. Now, the subjective perspective of those he interacts with is also important because that's where he has his level of influence to be able to help people and to heal people and to save people because he's God. But that's not what defines him, who defines him. So, and that's true for us as well. We are not defined by the, perceptions of others. Sure, that can factor into it, and that can be an important thing to note so that we can improve and grow, but that is not our ultimate identity. But also, it's important to make a positive impression on others, because some people you're only going to be able to reach based off of your credibility, and if you ruin that for yourself, it's just foolish to do. But if it has been ruined in the past, there is always a possibility for redemption, and honesty and openness really builds respect pretty quickly. So Even people who have fallen in public and made bad mistakes, when they're open, they're like, hey, you know what, I did mess up and it was bad, and it's, like, I'm not happy about it. Oftentimes, if they're willing to actually own up to it, they can regain trust relatively quickly in the eyes of general people. If it's someone really close to them that they've hurt, it's a bit harder to rebuild that trust, because it takes more time because of how deeply emotional the hurt was. But to the general public, people can, they do one thing, and in the eyes of the public, they're redeemed. So it also just goes to show how unreliable the public view is, because it can flip flop based off of a news article. So, I mean, I think that's what I got for now. I'm so sorry for how disjointed this was. I'm going to have to really polish up how I articulate myself, because I just went down like a bunch of different directions simultaneously, and I don't know how to work my way from like the very beginning, because it's so many beliefs that I've built upon for the last like 4 years, piece by piece. And, if I was to do that again, it would take 4 years to do it again from where I originally started, or it might take a lifetime. And so to just sum that up in one video is a very difficult thing to do, because there's so many thoughts that have gone through my mind, so many beliefs that have gone through my mind that I've lived with. I've lived with so many different beliefs, and let my behaviors be dictated by those beliefs, and then change those beliefs to be better, but then realize, oh my gosh, that belief isn't better, it's just a different type of bad. And then like we work our way around it, and some stuff isn't so black and white. Yeah, there's a lot, and I don't know how to get into it all now. But I guess I'll just wrap that up here for now. I hope that this was valuable. I hope that it at the very least sparked some thinking. I apologize that I didn't get very deep. Very, very difficult to linger and remain in that level of depth of thought for a period of time. It can be, I guess, somewhat taxing. So yeah, I guess I'll leave it at that for now. God bless, guys. I might repeat some of this stuff in future videos just to be able to articulate it better, but I'll leave it at that for now. That is everything. God bless, and ciao.